Welcome to Nice and Blunt. I'm Adam Riancho, and it's the last Monday of the NFL regular season. It's week 18, time to make some picks for every game. At the moment, the Lions-Niners game has yet to take place, but on the week, I did go 13-2 with my picks. The only two incorrect was that shocking upset, the Giants beating the Colts, as well as my reckless decision of the week did not work out. The Browns at home did not beat Miami. Despite the weather, even with Tyler Huntley, the Dolphins still got it done. So I went 13-2, the same record as y'all, but we did have two disagreements that kind of canceled each other out. We agreed on the Colts pick. That one we both got wrong. But then where I was right and you guys were wrong was the Jaguars beating Tennessee. You guys did take the Titans at a pretty sizable margin, over 60%. So that one was incorrect. And while you did pick up that Dolphins game, I evened it out with the Jaguars call. So on the week, you guys also go 13-2. You are also taking the Lions. So at worst, y'all will go 13-3. I think we're both going to go 14-2 tonight, though. I do think the Lions will beat San Francisco tonight. But on the year, you guys have a much better record than I do. 179-76 compared to 164 and 91. I've made a few too many upset predictions that did not work out, and it has cost me. There were a few weeks where I was very reckless, trying to claw back. It didn't work out. So your win percentage is now above 70%, assuming that Lions call is correct. But I'm at 64% on the season. Barring a massive collapse, I will not go over 100 incorrect. I'd have to have a 7-9 record next week for that to happen. I really doubt that'll happen, but you never know. I could always shoot myself in the foot again. So stay tuned for those picks. We'll find out in just a second what bad decisions I will make this week. But against the spread is where it's very interesting. This week we go 2-3 at the moment. We still have the Lions minus 3.5, and hopefully they don't win by only a field goal. That one I feel really nervous about. So not a good week. The Cowboys pick I did make before CeeDee Lamb was ruled out, so that one didn't work out for me. A pretty convincing win by the Eagles. And then the Browns did not pay off for me, even plus 6.5. Nope, the upset was a bad decision. And then we also took the Falcons plus 4. That game did go into overtime, but obviously the Commanders win by a full touchdown, so nope, didn't work out. And then the Raiders plus 2 was the pick, along with the Vikings minus 1.5. Kind of a close game at the end, but still did win by enough to cover. So 2-3 brings my overall record this season to 46-1, and we are deadlocked at 500 with 7 picks left on the season. If I do not go 4-3 combined with tonight and next week, I will have a losing record officially on the season. So this week means a lot. We started off terribly. We had like a 3-9 record the first 2 weeks, and then the last 3 weeks, we also have had a losing record. There was a 3-week stretch at one point where I was like 15-3, but obviously, other than that, I have not done well at all. So 46-1, we're at least even, but hopefully with this week's picks, we do go above 500 on the season. So that'll be interesting. Stay tuned to the end of the video for that. But let's get into this week's schedule. In week 18, we have a lot of playoff hopes on the line, but also a bunch of irrelevant games. Maybe not for everyone. There are some good draft picks up for grabs as well. So let's get into it. What do I think will happen on Saturday? We have 2 games in the AFC North. We'll find out who wins the division before Sunday takes place. We have the Ravens hosting the Cleveland Browns, and I think there's no chance in hell that Lamar loses this game. If anything, he'll probably cement his case for MVP and win comfortably. I think they win by well over 3 touchdowns. I could envision a 40-3 score by the time we hit the mid-third quarter. So the Ravens will dominate. Ravens obviously win here. I think the Browns have no shot at all. Then in the evening, the Steelers are going to try and play spoiler to the Bengals, bounce them from the playoffs, as well as lock up the number 5 seed. At the moment, they still have their control over that spot. However, if they lose, then they open the door for the Chargers to take it away from them. But the Bengals are super desperate for a win. Not only do they have to win for a chance at the 7 seed, they also need some help with other teams losing. So I think the Bengals will play lights out. I do not trust the Steelers' defense right now. And although Joey Porter Jr. probably returns for this one. I don't see him locking up Jamar Chase at all. Not the same caliber of Patrick Surtain, who also let Jamar go over 100 yards. So Joe Burrow going to play out of his mind here. The Steelers defense will not have enough answers, and they have not looked the same in the last couple weeks. So despite some extra rest, I will take Cincinnati. The Bengals played last Saturday, and I think they'll be fine. They're way too motivated to get the win. They have no room for error. So it's an all or nothing game. The Bengals win it. And the Pittsburgh Steelers probably fall to the 6th seed, kind of a rough spot. They will face off against Baltimore in the playoffs if these picks hold. If the Ravens win and the Steelers lose, then the Ravens will be the 3 seed, the Steelers the 6 seed, and the Bengals have a shot at the 7 seed, depending on some picks later on. But let's move on to Sunday, where the Falcons are hosting the Panthers, and I cannot envision the Falcons losing this one. I think the Panthers have a shot, but without Chuba Hubbard, it's just not going to be enough firepower. Bijan Robinson at home is going to dominate the worst run defense in the NFL this season. The Panthers cannot stop anyone on the ground. So I'm definitely taking the Falcons. Even if they win, they probably don't make the playoffs at all, but at least they give themselves a chance, and they're very motivated. I think they will get it done. Michael Penix looks pretty good. So I'm going to trust Bijan Robinson. The lack of run game for the Panthers really going to hinder their offensive output, and their defense will have no answers for neither Bijan nor Tyler Algier. The Falcons are going to run all over them. Give me Atlanta, definitely, over Carolina. Then in Dallas, an interesting game where the Cowboys are still pretty hungry for wins, but without CeeDee Lamb, their offense is nowhere near the same. And the Commanders still have something to play for here. If they lose, then they open the door for the Packers to take the 6th seed away from them. However, if they win, they maintain their tiebreaker. With 12 wins, they would get the Rams most likely in the playoffs, as opposed to the Eagles as the 2 seed if they're the 7. So I think the Commanders would rather avoid Philadelphia, and that's why they will play all of their starters here. I don't think anyone's going to be benched unless they have a massive lead in the second half that's like 30 plus points. So the Commanders will win comfortably. I definitely trust them here. They'll lock up that number 6 seed. Jaden Daniels, the clear rookie of the year. Then in Green Bay, we have the Packers hosting Chicago, and Matt LaFleur has never lost to the Bears. And not only that, this game is happening simultaneously with Washington, and they will not know if the Commanders are going to lose. That's the only chance they have to move up in the playoff bracket. So I think they're locked into the 7 seed as long as the Commanders do win, but the Packers need some momentum. They've lost a couple games in the last few weeks against other playoff teams, and the perfect opportunity to get some confidence going is against a team like Chicago. So the Packers always beat them, especially at home. It's not going to be close. Give me the Packers for sure. Caleb Williams loses 11 in a row to close out the season. They start off 4-2, and they're going to finish 4-13. Then the Titans host the Texans in a very irrelevant game for Houston. However, a very important game for Tennessee if they want any chance to draft one of those top 2 quarterbacks next season. They would have to lose to have any shot at a high draft pick. So I think the Texans are going to be trying to lose this game. Well, that's not the intention. I think it's definitely a good bonus to happen. And if it means benching all their starters to make it possible, I think they're going to take that chance. I think there's no reason to risk it. Joe Mixon is kind of older. He has gotten banged up earlier this season. Along with Nico Collins missing time, they just lost Tank Dell a couple weeks ago. They can't afford to lose anyone else. I don't see the Texans putting up much of a fight. There's also a lot of rain in this game, and the Titans always play the Texans very tough. This game is in Tennessee, and I think despite their fans' desires for them to lose, the Titans will probably win. Give me the Titans here to beat the Texans and mess up their draft pick. They do not have a shot at either Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward unless they trade up to get him. I think the Titans will have to look to free agency to get their quarterback of the future. I don't think they're going to roll with Will Levis or Mason Rudolph next season. So Titans win, bummer for them, but at least the players in the locker room have something to feel good about for 1 week. Then in Indianapolis, the Colts are hosting Jacksonville, and the Colts, I wouldn't underestimate their capability of crumbling and losing any given game. We saw them lose to the Giants last week. The Jags have good weapons on offense. At least Brian Thomas is a nightmare to cover. And I could see him completely torching the Colts. But Jonathan Taylor at home is usually a pretty reliable bet. He's been playing lights out lately, but I still think the Jags will give them a tough time. So it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's a convincing win, but given it's at home, I'm going to go with the Colts. I'm going to trust Shane Steichen to lock up his job security. There's a slight rumor that they might get rid of him. I think that'd be a very foolish decision. The problem is the quarterback play, not the coaching. If they lose again next season in terrible fashion with like Sam Darnold, who they acquire in free agency, then yeah, maybe you'd consider firing the coach. But I think at this point, you got to give him one more season. I think he wins here, but I don't feel great about it. It could go the other way, especially if Richardson is the quarterback. I think if Flacco's the quarterback, then maybe it does go to Jacksonville. But if Richardson plays, I would take the Colts, and we'll see what happens. But this one's a toss-up. I'll go with the home team just because they're at home. Then the Bills travel to New England, and I think because Lamar plays lights out on Saturday, the Bills are not going to take any chances. They want Josh Allen to get the MVP. On top of that, the Patriots are vying for that number 1 overall pick, and maybe Gerard Mayo gets fired regardless of if they win or lose, but I do think the Patriots will lose. Their roster just doesn't have enough firepower to compete. So although they played very well against the Bills a couple weeks ago, the Bills started off really flat, and I don't think that happens here. I think the Bills start off red hot, and they win comfortably. They want to be able to bench him in the second half. However, they need him to play well enough to lock up the MVP votes before that happens. So Bills win comfortably. I think the score also reaches like 40-10 by the beginning of the fourth quarter. And at that point, the Bills will rest Josh Allen. He will be the MVP. So give me the Bills here. I think they do win over New England. The Patriots get the number 1 pick next season, and they probably shop it. I think they should stick with Drake May and get as many picks as they can for someone else to draft Shedeur Sanders. Then the Eagles host the Giants, and there's also history on the line here. I think they are going to try and get Saquon that rushing record. So at least they're going to be starting players to begin the game. Their quarterback situation is rather up in the air right now, but I think the Giants just don't have enough to stop the Eagles offense. So I'm going to take Philadelphia. I think Saquon will get the record, and against his former team, it would mean a lot. I do think the Eagles will win. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they bench almost everyone, and the Giants also spoil their draft pick again. But the Giants still have a shot at a very good pick if they lose this game. The Titans winning would be very good for them, and I do think the Giants will try to get back to tanking. So the Eagles win here, the Giants lose, and maybe that helps their chances at drafting a quarterback next season. Then the Tampa Bay Bucs host the Saints, and I don't think there's a chance that the Bucs lose. Their defense is stepping up lately, and even without some pieces on offense, Baker's playing lights out. The Bucs will win against a bitter rival, the Saints. Maybe the Saints defense steps up, but I really doubt it. I can't envision the Bucs losing at home with their playoff chances on the line, especially if the Falcons win earlier in the day. The Bucs will play well. I think Tampa will get the win here. The Bucs win over the Saints. Then the Broncos host the Chiefs, and their playoff hopes are on the line here. If they win, they're in, but if they lose, then they would at least be bounced by Cincinnati, if not the Dolphins as well. So this game is really interesting. The Chiefs are going to be benching some starters, but I do trust Andy Reid. I think even with Carson Wentz, they can still beat Bo Nix. I did not like that decision to go to overtime. I think with the chance to decide their playoff hopes, they should have given Bo Nix the ball and gone for 2, because even though they lose, they're still viable to win this week and advance. If they were comfortable with that chance, then why risk a shot at the tie? Just go for the win when you have a shot on the road. I thought that was a dumb call to kick the extra point at the end of the game and force overtime. So Broncos will regret it here. I think the Chiefs are still going to win. I know the Broncos are heavy favorites by Vegas, but I still trust Andy Reid and Spags in terms of coaching. So I'm going to trust the Super Bowl caliber team. The roster in Kansas City is still good enough and deep enough to beat Denver even on the road. So other than last season when Russ beat them, the Andy Reid Mahomes Chiefs have never lost to Denver. I think it sticks to that trend. I will take the Chiefs to eliminate Denver. I don't think the Chiefs care who gets into the playoffs, but the chance to eliminate Denver would feel pretty good. A division rival that they would love to beat. So give me the Chiefs. I'm just going to bet on Andy Reid. I do think he wins this game. Even on the road at Denver, the Chiefs go 16-1. They're not going to just roll over and let the Broncos into the playoffs easily. So give me the Chiefs. I think it does happen, and I think the Broncos season is over. Then in Las Vegas, the Raiders host the Chargers, and if the Steelers lose, that opens the door for the Chargers to get the number 5 seed and a matchup at Houston instead of at Baltimore. That would be a far more favorable matchup than against the coach's brother, who they lost to earlier in the season. The Chargers need this win. They will get it. They'll go 11-6 and lock up the number 5 seed. So would love for that to happen. I think it's a very winnable game. The Chargers should take care of business and win comfortably. Then the Rams are hosting Seattle in a pretty irrelevant game for them. I would expect at least Cooper Kupp and Stafford to be benched for the majority of the game. Maybe Puka and Kyron as well. Even with backups, I still think it's going to be a close one. I don't trust Seattle that much. Last week against the Bears, they only put up 6 points. And although Geno completely blamed it on the rain, I think his bum knee is also a big reason why their offense was shit. So maybe they won't have Kenneth Walker again either. I still don't feel that confident in Seattle. And with nothing to play for themselves other than pride, I don't feel like it's that convincing of a pick. So although the Rams are not favored in this one, I do think they win. I think the better coach and better depth on the roster will win out. I do trust the Rams more than I trust Seattle. So even with Blake Corum, Jordan Whittington, and Demarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell, I think Jimmy Garoppolo can still beat Geno Smith and the Seahawks. Maybe you'll disagree. I think it's doesn't really matter. So if you want to take Seattle, go for it. But I'm going to bet on the Rams. I think they keep their momentum rolling and get the dub over a division rival that they almost always beat. Like last year, the Rams swept Seattle. This year, I think they'll sweep them again. Give me the Rams at home. Whose house? Rams' house. The LA Rams beat Seattle in LA. Then the Jets face off against Miami in probably one of the most underrated playoff implication games of the week. And we might really get an underwhelming matchup if Tyler Huntley is the quarterback again. I think that's definitely possible. If Tua missed last week in a must-win, he can definitely miss again. I don't think they're going to force it if he's not 100%. So I actually think Tua will sit, and I think the Jets will capitalize. The Jets forced overtime in a game a few weeks ago, and that was in Miami. This game is going to be very frigid. The temperature is 35 degrees at MetLife at the moment in terms of the forecast, and we know that the Dolphins always fold in the cold. So last week it was just the wind. The wind's also relevant here, but the fact that it's so cold, I think will really be a problem for the Dolphins offense in this one. So I'm going to take Rodgers and Devontae Adams to play well enough to play spoiler. Not only does it end the playoff hopes of the Dolphins, it also worsens the draft pick for the Jets. So give me New York. I think that 500th career touchdown for Rodgers to Devontae Adams is a very important thing to happen. And it's going to be close, might go into overtime again, but I'll take the Jets to eliminate Miami this season. I don't think the Dolphins will make the playoffs. I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals will get it. I'm kind of convinced that happens. So I am picking this to kind of reinforce that bias, but I actually think the Dolphins will lose, especially if Tua doesn't play. I do think the Jets can beat them at their home stadium. So I will take the Jets. Don't feel great about it. It's going to be a close one, but give me the home team to spoil the season for a division rival. Then the Arizona Cardinals host the San Francisco 49ers, and the Cardinals, I think, have kind of given up. I don't trust them at all right now, and I know Trey McBride is playing well, but George Kittle will go toe-to-toe with him in terms of stats, and I do trust Brock Purdy right now a little bit more than Kyler Murray. With Call of Duty out, I think Kyler is ready to call it in. He's been eliminated. He doesn't give a shit, at least not enough to be as prepared for this game as I think Brock Purdy will, who's vying for his next contract and needs to at least finish the season on a winning note. So the Niners, I think, are the pick. I think even on the road at the Cardinals, I will take San Francisco. It's kind of the end of the road for some of their players, but Debo, I think, steps up in probably his final season with the team, and I think the Niners offense will get rolling early and just put up too many points for the Cardinals to compete with. So give me the Niners here on the road. I'm taking San Francisco at the Cardinals. But then the game of the week, the most important game of them all, the Lions host the Vikings to decide the NFC North and the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. So winner gets a playoff bye, loser gets a road game at probably the Buccaneers, and that'd be kind of a nightmare scenario for Detroit, who've been leading all season, and one of their only losses was also to the Bucs earlier in the season. So this game is going to be close. The injuries to the Lions defense are obviously at the forefront of my mind, and I don't see them stopping the Vikings offense, especially with no weather as a factor at all. I have a hard time not envisioning a shootout, and I have a hard time betting that Dan Campbell won't make a reckless decision that costs them the game. So it's going to be a very close one. I think it comes down to the wire, but I'm going to bet on the coach I trust a bit more. And Darnold is almost on equal footing in terms of MVP votes in my mind as Jared Goff. So it's going to be super close, but I'm going to bet on the slightly better depth. I think the injuries on the defense for Detroit are the deciding factor. I'm going to take the Vikings to win, and I've kind of felt this way for the last few weeks. I've felt like the Lions are kind of vulnerable, and if they fall to the wild card round, I have a hard time envisioning them winning 3 straight road games to make the Super Bowl. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Lions do lock it up. That playoff bye would be so important for them, but I'm going to take Minnesota. I think their season has just been so consistent all year long. Meanwhile, Detroit often makes a critical error that just forces them to cough it up. So whether it's the onside kick against the Bills a few weeks ago, or just random 4th down decisions by Dan Campbell, I'm going to trust the steadier decision maker. I'm going to go with the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell against the Lions. The Vikings win the division. The Lions get the 5 seed. So those are my picks this week. All 16 games, here they are. The Ravens are going to lock up the division. They win very comfortably over the Browns on Saturday. Then the Steelers are going to lose to the Bengals. The Steelers fall to the 6th seed, and the Bengals keep their hopes alive for the playoffs. Meanwhile, on Sunday, the Falcons give themselves a shot to win the division, but it's probably not enough. The Falcons beat Carolina at home. Then the Cowboys are going to lose to Dan Quinn, their former defensive coordinator. The Commanders will lock up the number 6 seed in the NFC. The Packers are going to give themselves the best chance to have it, but they will not have the tiebreaker. They will finish at 12-5, the 7 seed in the NFC. They will beat the Chicago Bears at home on Sunday. Then the Titans worsen their draft pick. The Texans have nothing to play for. They bench their starters, and the Titans capitalize in the rain. Titans win at home. Then the Colts will beat the Jaguars. Maybe. I don't feel great about it. That one will be close, but at home, I think the Colts will win, and Steichen will guarantee his job security for one more season. Then the Bills will guarantee Josh Allen the MVP by beating the Patriots again pretty comfortably this time. And then the Eagles will give Saquon the record, at least try to get it, and beat the Giants. The Giants will get closer to the number 1 draft pick with this loss. But then the Buccaneers lock up the number 4 seed and the division with a win over the Saints. They will win over New Orleans. Then the Chiefs eliminate Denver. Even with Carson Wentz, Andy Reid will find a way. The Chiefs go 16-1, and the Broncos miss the playoffs entirely. The Chargers, with a chance to lock up the 5 seed, will get it. They'll go on the road at Houston by beating the Raiders with a Steelers loss on Saturday. Then the Rams host the Seahawks, and even with backups, they keep rolling, keep the momentum going, and beat Seattle. They sweep Geno for the 2nd year in a row. Then the Jets will eliminate the Dolphins. Rodgers and Adams spoil the draft pick for New York, as both players probably won't play there next season. Then the Cardinals will lose to San Francisco, and Purdy will increase his bargaining power with a win to close the season. Last game of the week, though, the Vikings lock up the number 1 seed. The Lions lose and go on the road in the wild card round at Tampa. So those are my picks this week. A lot of obvious favorites getting the win, and I don't see a lot of upsets in general, other than the Jets and perhaps the Titans. I don't think that many of them are bold picks at all. So that's what I envision in week 18. But before I go, I also give you 6 picks against the spread. Here they are. I believe the Ravens will demolish the Browns. And although 18 points is a lot, I could easily see the score being 40-10 in the fourth quarter when the Ravens finally bench their starters. So Ravens, I think, will win by over 20 points. I think a full 3-touchdown lead will work out. The Ravens as heavy favorites, I think, are still the pick, even minus 18. But then I'm also taking the Chargers to win by, in my opinion, over a touchdown, but the line is 5.5, and I will just take that number. I expect them to get that 5 seed as long as Pittsburgh opens the door. If you told me that the Steelers win on Saturday and the Chargers are locked into the 6 seed, then maybe they bench some starters and it's kind of irrelevant. Maybe I'll avoid it if that happens, but at the moment, I don't think it will. I think the Chargers will win either way, honestly. I think 5.5 points is enough to stick with the favorites. Give me LA Chargers over Las Vegas, minus 5.5. Then the Commanders, I think, will definitely beat the Cowboys without CeeDee Lamb. They lock up the 6 seed. They do not want to get the Eagles in the first round. So give me the Commanders minus 3. I think that is the right pick in this one. Then the Vikings, I think, will win outright, and they're underdogs by 2.5 points. It might be super close and maybe a 1-point game, but I'll take this 2.5 points. I think the Vikings will win. I'm going to stick with it. So that's a kind of a bold call, a rough one to bet on for sure, but it's a marquee game. To take it off the card in this segment, I think would be foolish. For the sake of entertainment value, let's make it interesting and stick with my pick of the Vikings upsetting Detroit. Then we have the Jaguars plus 5. I think that game is going to be very close. I think it could honestly go in favor of the Jags straight up, and I don't really want to trust the Colts defense right now against Brian Thomas. So going to come down to the wire, probably a field goal type of matchup. Plus 5 is kind of a dead number, but fuck it, I'll take it. Give me the underdog Jaguars to cover. I don't think they win straight up, but it is possible. I think plus 5 is the right bet in that Colts-Jags game. But lastly, I do not understand this line at all. I know that the Chiefs will be benching some starters, but 10 points? Bo Nix has to win by 11 for this not to push. I will just trust Andy Reid to keep it under 20 points on both sides of the ball. I do not expect the Broncos to win 31-20. I just can't envision a 10-point victory by the Broncos. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't think the Chiefs roll over. I think they win straight up. And if you're getting 10 points with the Chiefs, I think that is a clear and obvious must bet type of pick. So the Chiefs plus 10, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not seeing something, but I think that one is a clear and obvious pick with the Chiefs getting points. So these are my picks this week. The Ravens as heavy favorites win by at least 20 points. I think minus 18 is still a number I'm willing to bet on. The Chargers, I think, will win by a touchdown, so minus 5.5, I think, is the side. And then Commanders minus 3 should win by over a field goal. Then the Vikings, I think, win straight up. My underdog pick to win straight up, the Vikings plus 2.5. And then the Jaguars, I'm tempted to pick straight up as well, but plus 5.5, that game should be closer than expected. Lastly, the Chiefs getting 10 points is way too much in division. No effing chance they lose by 11 or more. Give me the Chiefs plus 10 convincingly. So those are my picks this week. If you enjoyed, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. But before I go, I want to mention what's at stake for me tonight in that Lions-Niners game. Obviously, I want them to win by 4 so that I'm above 500 against the spread. But my fantasy team needs the Lions and Niners game to be a shootout. I need all 4 of these players to average over 20 points in this matchup. I am down 82 points in the championship round of the subscriber league, but I got 4 players, Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jamison Williams. I got the triple Lions stack, and then I also have Isaac Guerendo as the Niners running back. Let's see what happens. I did bench Amir Abdullah, Jalen McMillan, and Jalen Warren, and I also shot myself in the foot on Wednesday. I previously had the Chargers on my bench. I stuck with the Steelers, who I've been riding all season. They got me -1 because I thought maybe if they catch an interception that's worth 4 points. I was facing the Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs defense. I thought that game would be closer. I was wrong. And this Patrick Queen dropped interception hopefully does not cost me the win. That 4-point play might decide it. I also benched Jonnu Smith for Chigo Okonkwo. That cost me about 2 points. and I would hate to lose by that margin. But I really think it's just going to be whether or not that Jameson Williams stack works out. If JMO goes over 20, I think I'm in business. I expect Goff to go over 25. I also expect Gibbs to go over 20. And if Garendo can match Bijan Robinson, I think I will get the dub. So wish me luck. Jameson Williams is the key here, but the triple stack, I think, gives me a shot. The upside is definitely available with this Lions triple stack on my roster. So that's what I'm hoping for. Let me know down below in the comment section what Monday Night Miracle you need to win, and I hope everyone watching does get the dub in Week 17. But I'll see you in some other videos. That's it for this one. My name's Adam Riancho, and thank you for watching. Nice and blunt.